The Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs did battle in the first edition of the Battle of Ontario this weekend. We're going to take a look at the outcome of the game and the final score. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, what is going on? My name is Mike and welcome to Top Shelf Hockey. If you're a returning viewer, thanks very much for taking the time to watch another video here with us. And if this is your first time here and you're a big hockey fan and you want to keep up with all the latest news, highlights, scores, trades, etc., then consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Let's take a look at the game between the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Final score ends up being the Ottawa Senators 6, Toronto Maple Leafs 3. In the first period, the Leafs gave up quite a few shots, and Frederik Andersen certainly held them in the game and was by far their best player in my opinion. As the game went on into the second period, the Senators ended up taking a 3-0 lead. Going into the third with a 3-0 lead, as the Senators have been proving lately, no lead is safe when you're playing the Senators. The Senators lately have been fond for some reason of giving up third period leads and going into overtime, and well, so far their overtime record hasn't been very good. So I'm sure Sens fans everywhere were a little leery going into the third period against the high-powered Maple Leafs that no lead was really safe. And they kind of proved that that was actually the case. We saw William Nylander and Austin Matthews bringing things close, making it 3-2. Then Senators coach Guy Boucher calls a timeout, gets everybody kind of settled down a bit, and then right off the face-off, 7 seconds later, we see Mark Stone with a patented Mark Stone takeaway, goes down and scores to bring the game back to 4-2. Obviously from there, things kind of went back and forth a little bit, and the final goal for the Senators ended up being into an empty net for a 6-3 victory. Let's take a look at a few reasons of what things that went well for each side. Obviously the Senators, the main thing that went well is they really played their system very well. They really clogged up the neutral zone, which really caused a lot of problems for the high-powered Maple Leafs to not really being able to get the offense going like they really had hoped for. For the most part, Craig Anderson played very well for the Senators. Obviously, he did give up a few goals in the third period, but I really can't blame him too much. Obviously, one of them was on a power play as well. And the Leafs, as good as they are with the offense, you're bound to get some chances if you keep sticking with it. The other factor for the Senators is they just did not give up at all. They kept coming back, which was a sign that, they're certainly a very mentally tough and a resilient group this year, just like they showed last year. Even when the Leafs tried to make a strong comeback in the third period, they certainly came back with their own push to kind of seal the deal, which for the first time this year, really. In other games this year, we saw the Sens kind of fall apart in the third period a little bit, where in this game they held tough and they got the job done. As far as an area of opportunity for the Maple Leafs, which was an area of strength for the Senators, we saw a lot of odd man rushes against the Leafs, especially in the third period. The Senators, part of that was the Senators playing their system well, causing a lot of neutral zone turnovers, but the Leafs was as well documented that I've discussed in other videos. Their defense and goaltending is certainly an area of concern. Freddie Andersen for the most part has been pretty good, but he has been inconsistent. And so obviously they need some big saves at time parts of the game, and they just didn't get it in this case. That Mark Stone breakaway right after the second Leaf goal, if they would have got a big save from Freddie Andersen there, that could have turned the table right there. They might have been able to come down and change the tide of the game. But they didn't get that save. And the Leaf defense still shows that as much as they've made some strides, they're pitching in on the offense, defensively speaking, they still have a lot of room for improvement. And until they can lock things down back there on the defensive side of the game, I don't see the Leafs, personally, they're a strong team, but they're going to struggle against some very good offensive teams. So all in all, it was a very entertaining game. As always, the Leafs and Sens put on a fun hockey game to watch. There was lots of goals. Obviously, goals so far in the NHL this season are up, which from a fan's perspective is really fun to watch for sure. Obviously, they always battle hard. There wasn't a lot of penalties though, and it really wasn't an overly rough game, which a lot of our Battle of Ontario games that we've seen in the past are certainly shown to be a lot more rough and tumble games, but we didn't really see that. That's probably just due to the fact that it was early in the year, and I think overall we've kind of seen some of the rough stuff and the hitting. This seems to be overall down a little bit. I think teams are trying to pace themselves since it's a long year. We did see an injury in the game. We saw Ottawa Senators forward Bobby Ryan take yet another puck to the hand. I think this guy's got to be somehow have magnets in his hands or something. I'm not sure what it is, but he suffered yet another broken finger and is expected to be out of the lineup for approximately 4 weeks. This is, I believe, the 4th time in 4 years or something crazy that Bobby's broken a finger. There's got to be something to this. It just seems absolutely crazy how this keeps happening to him year after year after year. You know, at this rate, especially with some of these injuries he tried to play with in the past, you know, at one point he was freezing his fingers and his hands a lot in the past couple of years. You know, I certainly feel bad for the guy. He's probably going to end up with a lot of arthritis in his hands after his playing career. Main stars of the game for the Senators in this case was Mark Stone and Derek Brassard, each scoring 2 goals and pitching in with an assist. For the Leafs, the top players had to be Austin Matthews and William Nylander yet again. Obviously, those two guys seem to be pretty consistent on a nightly basis for the Leafs, producing lots of chances and actually converting on a couple in this losing cause. One other item of note that I found a little bit interesting was it came into post-game interviews. Listening to Austin Matthews in his post-game interviews when asked why they had a hard time with the Senators and things in this game, he mentioned that their neutral zone game and their system was, you know, obviously difficult for them to break through. But he described them as absolutely boring everybody to death. I don't personally get this, and I don't really find that overly professional coming from a player of Matthews' stature. Obviously, I don't see how anything about the Senators are boring. I know I've heard this from other places as well, some other fans, but which is fine. You're all entitled to your opinion, and I respect that. But I don't see how. I mean, the Senators have only lost 1 game in regulation. They've scored 6 goals on 3 different occasions. And in this case, you know, they made the Leafs, they burned them on all their mistakes. So I'm not really sure how that's boring, but, you know, I think maybe for future interviews, Matthews might want to choose his words a little bit wiser. You know, you don't see or hear guys like Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby making comments like that. And I just, personally, if he wants to be considered in an upper echelon of elite players, which from a talent perspective, I think he has, I just think it might be good if he chose his words a little bit wiser. Calling other teams boring, I don't know, just wasn't cool in my opinion. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think the Sens are boring? Do you think what Matthews said was appropriate or inappropriate? Be curious to see what you think. So if you like this video, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you leave me some comments down below. Let me know if you think the Sens are boring, if you think Matthews was out of line or inappropriate, or if you think what he said was totally fine. If you're new to the channel and want to keep up with all the latest videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button in the middle of your screen and keep watching Top Shelf Hockey.